Welcome, welcome. All right. Hey, Oleg. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to wait for a little bit until everybody's around or people might want to join. Hey, Cameron's awake. Way to go, buddy. I have way too many tabs open, guys. Sorry. It's by accident. So what, you were partying hard last night and just came back and said, "Oh, well, I might as well join the hangout before I go to bed." Numpy. Okay, well, I've never heard of Numpy, so I'm learning how to use Numpy for a university group project. Hey, Rude, welcome, buddy. So yeah, I've never heard of that. Cannot help you there, my friend. Hey, Radislaw. Good afternoon. Python stuff. A friend of mine has switched from PHP to Python recently because he really wants to go towards artificial intelligence. And he was telling me that Python pretty much rocks it. He just imports a library, and then facial recognition is there for him. So he's really liking it, especially the structure of Python in its syntax, where you make a mistake with a tab, and of course it won't compile. It won't compile. So he's really liking it. I've played around a little bit with Python back in the day. Yeah, it was okay. I cannot complain. It's extremely powerful language, so I like PHP more. C Python and Zephyr Optimizer. There you go, Sergey, to the rescue. It just gave you the answer. And of course, you have to use Vim for that camera or Emacs, according to Sergey. All right. Let's wait for a couple more minutes, guys, so that we can get it 12:05, and then we'll start this thing. Nerd glasses. It's gonna be difficult for me to pronounce it. Balaz? I mean, I get the Nemeth, but it's a little bit tricky, your name. Welcome, welcome to the chat. So let me do this thing here. Screen share. This. Let's see, is it presenting now or not? I am also watching the stream, and it's quite a bit of a delay on what I see on screen and what I present. So you have to apologize. I have to apologize for this. Oh, there you go. All right, it loaded up fine. So let's start it. We have the community hangout for April. Welcome everybody. We have quite a few things to do. Rude, yeah, I can do yeah, we can do an ad to everyone. So let's do an everyone. Hangout is live. All right. This was an announcement for our channel. Of course, I pissed the camera on off. So hey. All right. Anyway, we will fight on Discord a little bit later with regards to who can do or who should do at everyone to the whole server. Welcome everybody to our hangout. Again, this is the hangout for Phalcon framework. It's the monthly status update. Hello to the community. This is for April, and April was a little bit special for us because we announced the April Bugfest. We tried to get as many people as possible involved with the community. We have some goodies to give out once the whole month is done and we have bugs fixed and all that stuff. So let's have a look. The next slide. What is our agenda? Okay, so as far as our agenda is concerned, first of all, you know, the introduction. Welcome to all the attendees. As always, and you will see this in every single hangout, a big thank you to our community and our contributors. We cannot thank you guys enough. We're going to give you a status update since the last Hangout and what happened with the Bugfest. Updates for Devtools and Incubator. For the Devtools, what we're doing, the steps we're taking for Docker and GitLab. PSR 16, which is the SimpleCache, and a Q&A. All right, so this slide, you're going to be really, really bored looking at it because I'm always going to have it here. It is the big thank you to all of our contributors and also all the stuff that we have in terms of links of where you can find us and where you can get some help if you need to, if you want to stop by and say hi. So these are the links that you need. I'm gonna have this this slide up, the link to the slides available after the Hangout is done. So don't worry about that. Also, you could go to Phalcon.link and you will be able to see all these links here if you forget something and all that. Okay. Now, here's the update. These are some names that I'm quoting here. By no means it's an exhaustive list. It's just a few names that I picked up. I don't do it. I did do it randomly. So Sid, Ekms, ZB, and Emilio, and many others for all this month for offering updates, suggestions, enhancements, fixes to bugs, fixes to documentation, and all that good stuff. So the total tally for this month were 51 enhancements, believe it or not. We had 4 bugs and 2 NFRs. We had tons and tons of cleanup. And tons of micro optimizations to the framework in order to make it work better. There was not there was no significant refactoring, if you want to call it that way, but there are certain things that we can do in the code that would make the code faster. And those are pretty much simple. Do not use, let's say, parentheses in this part. They're not needed. It doesn't help the parser, and. It's some little bits and pieces that we use in Zephyr to make things a lot faster. So tons of work there. Big kudos to Sid Roberts, who sat down and pretty much went through a lot of the code and offered these optimizations. We also had a lot more tests that entered our suite, and they have been refactored. And coding style changes. Now, currently, we're sitting at 13 open PRs. I haven't looked at anything this morning. So probably I'm going to have to spend some time reviewing everything that came in. We have 107 open issues. Most of them are NFRs and all that. And we have PSR 16. So I'm going to talk a little bit more on a slide a little bit later. But just the highlights, we've done the serialized storage adapters and the cache, and now we have to go to the ORM to make sure that the cache there works, which it doesn't if we don't make certain changes. All right, so a quick update on Zephyr. Dream and Sergey have been working heavily on Zephyr, trying to fix certain bugs that came up or bugs that existed. I'm happy to say that we are currently working on allowing the word use in enclosures inside Zephyr. We couldn't do that in the past. So I believe the syntax is already done, and there's some work in the back end to make this happen. This would allow a lot more functionality in Phalcon as far as Phalcon is concerned. But also Zephyr will offer this to all external users that can use it, and you can take advantage of closures this way. There were quite a lot of memory leaks fixed, optimizations, and there is a brand new NFR, which I don't know when it's going to be implemented, but it's there. It's to introduce coroutines and the keyword yield. And that would allow Phalcon to offer asynchronous components. So that's to do for the future. It's definitely not going to be a V4, at least V4.0, but our goal is to offer some asynchronous processing as far as Phalcon is concerned. Not necessarily how this would go right now. This is just the beginning. So we do want to put coroutines and yield on it, but I'm going to have to wait for the C gurus, which are Dream and Sergey and others, to let me know what the best way of doing this is. Because, you know, I don't know C. So some great, exciting news for the future here. A quick update on our translation and documentation. I actually did notice that I fat-fingered Zephyr. It's not ZE square bracket fear. It's actually Zephyr. Oh, one other thing that Sergey just pointed out is we fixed Unicode support in the source code in Zephyr parser as well. So there's you can actually, you know, name your variables whatever you want, and Zephyr is not going to blow up. So there's a lot of good things coming up there. For this slide, the translation and documentation, it is the same as the one that I had in the previous Hangout. Again, a big thank you to everybody that has been translating our documentation. Right now, we're working only on the V4 translation. Pretty much the bulk of our documents are there. There are some things that we need to go through. Go through every single PR and just make sure that what the PR did is reflects upon the documentation. And that's a tedious task. We're going to do it after we've completed with all the big items, probably starting on the beta 1, which should be here relatively soon. I don't know exactly when. And I'll explain why in a little bit later. So just for the people to know, the English documentation is in our docs repository, and then we have the service, awesome service by the way, from Crowden. What they do is they read the repository and then they offer people a very easy user interface to go and translate documentation. So when somebody goes and translates, then those translations are being stored in Crowden, and then Crowden issues a pull request into our repository back again. So then we merge everything that has been translated. Now we do have a kind of like a safeguard. If somebody goes and translates something, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will be reflected on the site immediately. A proofreader of that language has to update it. It has to approve the actual language translation. So once that is done, once the proofreader goes through every string and says, yeah, I approve this or not, then Crowden will actually send the translation to our site. And then also we have another awesome service by Algolia. They do crawl our documentation website, and with that crawling on a daily basis, we have the context, the autocomplete search, which is top right on the V4 documentation. So some updates here on the Devtools and the Incubator. Big thanks to Anton Jeggerson and Ruud for taking the lead. Hello, Emilio. Hello, Alexander. Welcome, guys. So for the Devtools, first of all, the idea was to utilize to do a lot of work for the Devtools. First of all, with regards to V4 and V3. Sadly, I didn't type this in, but I remember it. There's I believe 4 bugs in the V3 release of the Devtools that Jackerson is working on, and he will do that. And after that, he's kind of like gonna lock the V3 branch of the Devtools and start concentrating mostly on the V4. And there's also another aspect of the Devtools, so to speak. It is to create Docker images for the community. Now we did go towards Nanobox, and we're not leaving that, but certain people do want to work only with Docker and Docker natively. So Jeggerson has taken the lead on that with the help of some others in the community. And what we did is we applied to GitLab to give us an open source license, which they have been extremely gracious, and they gave us one for the gold subscription. So now we can use their pipelines integration, and what would happen is any changes that would happen in the Docker images, then pipelines would actually go and compile all the images and God knows what. Now, don't ask me more. I don't understand the whole process. I haven't seen this before, but according to Jackerson, we're going to have a lot more information on this in the next Hangout. We're going to make sure that everything is pretty much automated so that the community can enjoy the latest and greatest images for whatever operating systems they have. Okay. And Ruud, yes, you missed that because I didn't tell you. So yeah, Jackerson and I have been working on this for a week or two. I made a mistake on the license. They gave us the wrong license. I had to call them back again or whatever. And now everything is ready for that organization, that group, to be ready. And again, thank you so much for Jackerson for his time to trying to get this working. On the Incubator, Ruud has taken point on this. He's working towards the new build for V4 compatibility, loads of interface changes, and loads of refactoring. So there will be some of my time devoted there to make sure that we have a good, stable testing environment so that we can go with that. So we can go with that and make sure that all the Incubator stuff is working as expected. Now, last but not least, PHP PDS. A lot of people will go like, what is that? So the link is there. So PHP PDS is the package development standards. Paul M. Jones, for those that do not know him, he's the guy that has been a founding member of the PHP Fig. He drove I think it was PHP Fig 1, the PSR 1 and 2, I think. So yeah, he's got quite a few of PSRs under his belt. It was mostly for standards. So what Paul did was he went to packages and he actually started analyzing all the packages that are there. And he realized that there's no consistency. The way things are structured and the way people put in their code. So for instance, I could create a composer package, and then the folder where I have the code is /lib. Whereas let's say Sergey can do one, and it might be /src, or some other guy would create something else, and that makes it difficult for people to realize where the code is and where the code should be. So there was this drive to create this development standard. So you pretty much follow a particular set of naming of your folders and where you put your code. Very simple stuff. Code should be in src, tests should be in tests. Resources, any resources that your project needs should be in resources. If you have any executables, any command line stuff, they should be in /bin, stuff like that. Very simple and logical things. So what the guys are going to be doing, Jackerson, Root, and others as well, is they're going to be importing this project skeleton for PDS and making sure that all of our composer-based packages, Incubator, Devtools, and so on and so forth, they abide by this standard. In reality, I doubt that we will have any changes whatsoever, because we kind of like been following this. But we might need to change a couple of bits and pieces. And this makes it a lot easier for others to start discovering our packages. And, it's pretty much like a PSR, right? You follow the standard and the code looks the same, whoever programs it. Okay, and this is the same thing. Welcome to Dan the Fourth. And yeah, Ruth, talk to Jackerson. You guys can deal with that, and let me know if you need anything from GitLab-ish. All right, so now we're coming into the juicy parts. And if I'm going too fast, guys, just let me know. So PSR16 SimpleCache. I'm wondering, why did I start doing this? It's been more of a headache than anything else. So anyway, so our current cache system has two components. The first one is the front end, and the second one is the back end. So what you do is you create a front end component, you throw it into the back end component, and that's how you do your cache. So in most cases, currently, one would do the data cache, the data front end component, and then it would throw it, let's say, to files or memcached or Redis. Okay. So what that would do is it would take whatever you want to cache, all the contents, and it will throw it into Redis or anywhere. Well, that was not very, honestly, when I first saw it years ago, I was having a what the moment. It took me a while, and it was the example that actually proved to me what I should be doing. All right. Cache is usually set and forget. You set the service, and then all you do is just throw stuff in, and you pick them back out. But it has to make some sense out of it. So after discussions with Sergey, we kind of like changed a little bit the way we're doing things. So cache front end and cache back end are now going to be history. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace what it's called front end with a serializer. So if you did look at the code, the underlying code, you would note that the front end was really a serializer and an unserializer. So it would get the data from you, the application, it would serialize it in some way, and then it would take that serialized data and would send it in the cache, store it in the cache. And then when the reverse would happen, when you would want something, it would pick the data up from the cache, unserialize it, and then send it back to you. So instead of having front end, it makes sense to have a serializer. It's a little bit more intuitive for everybody that has been using it. So what we did is, first of all, we created a Phalcon storage class, because if you think about it, the cache backend is some sort of a storage component, right? So we're just storing data there. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be in your file system. It could be in Redis. It could be anywhere. Now, one might argue, what's the difference between a storage and a DB, so to speak? So Redis could act as DB, and then you could have, let's say, MySQL storage adapter, or you could have Mongo, or. For now, it is a storage engine, and we're using, a storage component, and the adapter in the back end is whatever we want it to be. And for now, we have Redis, Memcached, APCU, and a couple more. So take it as is for now. Now, the front end is becoming serializers. And those serializers are classes that are implementing the serializable interface. So you can throw in anything you want in there that follows the serializable interface. The ones that come out straight out of the bat are base64, IG binary, JSON, MSG pack, none, and PHP. PHP uses the serialize and serialize native functions. Base64 works really well with strings, but it doesn't work really well with others. IG binary, of course, you have to have the IG binary extension, otherwise it won't work. MSG pack, and so on and so forth. So we can extend that list. We can have more serializer if we want to. We can throw some in the incubator. It's entirely up to us. But there is an interface that you can follow, and you can do anything you want as far as storage is concerned, and serializing and non-serializing data. Now, what happens with the actual storing? You know, what we used to call the backend, right? The backend is now the adapters, right? And I mentioned before, we have APCU, libmemcached, memory, Redis, and stream. Stream is what we used to call the file. Nothing stops us from introducing a database one here, or Mongo, or Firebase, or anything you want. Okay, we do have the adapter interface, and all these can be extended. So pretty much what we're going to do is user or application would create this cache. It was said, okay, I want this this adapter, let's say libmemcached, right? And then with the libmemcached, usually I believe the JSON adapter, the JSON serializer is the default. Each of those has a default serializer, right? But you can change it at any given point. So you set that, and then you just say, okay, send some data to libmemcached. And then once it picks it up, the serializer will come in, it will transform the data, and then it will send it back to libmemcached for storage. And the reverse would happen when you want to pick the data up. Some of these guys here, for in particular Redis and libmemcached, do have built-in serializers. So I know for a fact that libmemcached does support IG binary. Now, if when you're setting up your cache, you say that your serializer is IG binary, and you choose your adapter as libmemcached, because libmemcached supports the IG binary serializer, it will not use the Phalcon one. It would use the built-in one for speed. All right. The same thing happens with Redis. So if a serializer is already supported by your backend, if you like, but by your adapter, the Phalcon serializer would never be used. We would use the native one versus anything else. Now, for Redis, I've read in the documentation that there is support for MSG pack, and for JSON, and for others, but for some reason I just couldn't find it. I kept on getting all sorts of errors in the constants do not exist. So maybe it's some sort of a version thing with the extension, and some things are coming later. We'll figure that out. But the point is that if one of those, just go back, if one of these serializers is supported natively by the adapter, we're going to use the native support versus the Phalcon one. Okay, and that definitely speeds things up. All right, back to this. So now we have the Phalcon/cache. It is fully PSR 16 compliant. It implements the proper interfaces. It throws the proper extensions and all that stuff. In order for this to work, you would need an adapter to for it to work. So looking at the cache and the storage, you guys understand why we took that approach and we created storage classes. Because if you think about it, cache is using a storage of sorts, right? It stores stuff somewhere else. By extracting all the storing mechanism into its own namespace, now pretty much our cache just extends the storage class and that's it, right? But the benefit is now we can use these storage classes and storage adapters somewhere else in the framework, whether this is, let's say, the session, right? Instead of trying to have this piece of code that connects your session to the Redis cluster, and then we have exactly the same piece of code as a copy pasta spaghetti code, as we call it, into the cache and somewhere else and somewhere else. So with this refactoring, we're shrinking the code down and we're having one component handling all this storing and retrieving of the data into some sort of a remote storage component. So our cache heavily depends on the storage class, and it is PSR 16 compliant. So that's the biggest refactoring that we did. And there has been a lot of code that has been deleted just because of this refactoring, right? Now, we also had an enhancement that a lot of people have been talking about. For those that have worked in enterprise applications with tons and tons of data, might have seen the problem where you use the file cache and then lo and behold, your system clogs down because you cannot store more files in the same folder. I think Linux has a 10,000 limit, 10,000 file limit, and it's a problem. Sometimes you need to use the file cache. Sorry for the pinging on my phone. So sometimes you definitely need to use the file cache and you cannot use anything else. So you have to have all these files over there. So what we did is we added a new mechanism where when you're going to be using the stream adapter, you're going to be able to store everything in subfolders. Now, it is 2 letters per subfolder, so that's going to give you around 16,000 files max. It's 32 characters times 34 or something. So if you do that multiplication, it's a little bit less than 1,600. But that is well below the maximum amount of files per folder. So as you see, the example is my-test-key would actually be stored in the my/t/es/ blah, 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 and then the actual file. And this will be transparent to you. All of this would happen in the back end, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, I did get into a lot of problems with my tests on this, so I'm still working on figuring out exactly how it would work. There are a few tests that it's complaining, especially when going into the next issue where it's the problems. So so far, there's 2 tests that are not passing. It's the increment and decrement of Redis, the Redis adapter. Everything else passes, right? For all adapters, all serializers and everything. And I'll have to fix that. Now, when we're doing the refactoring, you usually go and change the interfaces and then maybe rename the original classes so that you see where it fails and all that stuff. But a quick search in the code realized that the cache is heavily integrated into the database modules. So you're looking at criteria interface, results set, query, binder interfaces, and all that stuff. So what I did is I had a test run, just see, hey, well, will it work right off the bat? And of course, it failed badly. So now I'm taking the very, very small, careful approach. Just make this tiny little change and see what happens. Tiny little change, see what happens. Adjust the test if need be, and so on and so forth, or write more. So that's where I am right now. The other big thing is the way things were done with the cache. Is it was implementing has started and is buffering and all that stuff, which really doesn't make that much sense for a cache to be buffering. You're not supposed to be capturing data, so to speak, that is in the view layer, right? The cache is not supposed to be, the cache is supposed to be a backend, kind of like in the domain, if you like. But the buffering, when you stream data back to the user, is in the view layer. So by combining those two, or offering this way of storing view data, it's actually breaking that little contract that you have with the backend. Has to be the backend, the front end has to be the front end. So the output cache, which was in the current front end, so you would do new front end equals output, whatever, instead of data. What that would do is it would use the OB start, OB get contents, and OB stop in order to capture what's being printed out on screen and then cache that. Now, I can think of a million different ways of people having heart attacks, people in the academia of design patterns and all that stuff. But that's fine. This is our framework. We can do things the way we want to. And of course, the community has a lot of input here. But at least for me, it didn't make sense to actually break that particular contract and just leave the front end be the way it is and have the back end be where it's at. I did look at other different frameworks, and I don't think that I found anything that would support this kind of caching. So usually if you want to cache the front end in any other framework, you just collect all the data that you want to send to the front end, you cache that, and then you send it out. So you're not caching it as you're sending it out, if that makes sense. So the output cache will be dropped from this implementation because it causes a hell of a lot more headaches than the problems that it solves. And I should know we use this output cache in the forum application. So we'll have to refactor this in a way that before we print stuff out, we will cache it and then just print it out. And then the next time you want to print it, you just pick it up from the cache and you send the cached contents out. So we're not going to be doing any OB start or B stop. And these are all recipes for disaster when you're playing with stuff like that. Okay, so okay, I'm happy that you guys like the changes. And then welcome Wajdi, I think. Guys, if I'm killing your names, just let me know, right? And that was it. That's the Q&A. This is all the stuff that that I have for you guys. There you go. Thank you, and all of our stuff here. And I can just the slides are going to be here, so let me just stop this. There you go. You can see my ugly face. So any yeah, okay. Amelia, I did mention the Bugfest results. It was what was it? 51 enhancements that were put in. I just couldn't figure out exactly how many translations came into the project. This is way too much data for me to pick it out. I think it was around 15, 16 pull requests from CrowdEnd that came in total. So we had 51 enhancements, 4 bugs, and 2 NFRs that went in. And according to it, yes, we did have an alpha release, an extra alpha release in the meantime, since our last hangout. And it was really cool. Nice little release. Fixed quite a few things on that one too. To give you an example, I'll give you a small example, a little bit on the. All right, let me share PHP Storm for a sec, guys. And I just want to give you an idea about the cache. Excuse me. All right, so let me share PHP Storm for a sec. All right. I hope this is kind of like clear. I'm not 100% sure if it's good enough. There is a way that you guys can increase the quality. So on YouTube, while you watch it, if you hover at the bottom where it has the start play and the live, there's a little gear icon. So you can click on that and you can select the quality to be 720. Thank you for the bless you. To answer your question, Amelia, no, there's no winners or losers on this. The people that did submit pull requests, that they helped the community and all that stuff, are going to receive a t-shirt and some stickers from us. So we're working on the little logo, Rude, to get something like Phalcon Bugfest or something 2019, and we're gonna print those t-shirts and we're gonna send them out. So what I'm gonna do after the end of the month, I'm gonna send an email to the participants, and I'm gonna ask for their address, and then I'm just gonna put the orders in for everybody to get it. Okay. Now, I don't know if. Yeah, of course you forgot. What did I expect? So let me see if I can make this thing a little bit to zoom it. Does anybody know how to zoom PHP Storm a little bit? Maybe. What is this? No, let's search. Okay. So I'll figure out where the zoom is. So if you're looking here, this is the namespace storage and adapter, right? And let's say the APCU. The adapter, just has some construction here. This is where we set up the serializer. Presentation mode. All right, where is presentation mode? Oh, duh. Oh, Lord. Why did I do this? Okay. All right, so this is the constructor of the APCU class. As you can see, it picks up certain things. It sets up a default prefix. If you pass it, it will override this. And then it uses the Phalcon storage serializer class, and then picks up the default serializer, which the default, I think, is JSON, right? And then it does certain things. You have clear here, you have decrement, delete, get adapter, and so forth, right? All right, so how do we go out of here? Oops. Okay. How do you get out of this? Come on, presentation mode. All right, okay. This is a little bit better. Control Alt Delete. Ha ha ha. I'm on Linux, dude. Control Alt Delete will not work for me. So, hold on a sec. I need to find something again. Where's my... Hold on a sec, guys. Technical problems. How do you get out of this thing? Oh, there it is. Okay, there's a little hover. I didn't see that. All right, let me reshare. That's gonna... I couldn't see it because my YouTube window was on top of it. All right. Okay, so you guys now see how the clear and all that stuff happens, right? Let's see, do I have anything right here? Come on, come on. Stupid mouse. There we go. Okay, so what the heck is this thing? Where's the... Sometimes I hate computers, really. How do you see this thing here? Or how to exit this damn presentation? Sorry guys. I mean, there you go. Amen. All right. So let's see if it's gonna do it again. Oh, and now my menu disappeared. It's floating. Yeah. Anyway, so all right. So this is the APCU class, right? If I go to the cache adapter and I go to the APCU, you're gonna see that this class here is pretty much an extension of my storage class. So all this code that was here is just gone, right? And then for other components that do require this, so I'll give you an example for the, let's say, adapter Redis for the session. Okay, so now we're going to a totally different component, and this one I might have to get it like that. Presentation mode. Okay. Maybe that would be a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. So remember we said that there's the storage adapter and all that. Control plus. Yeah. Probably. View exit presentation mode. Yeah. The problem, Sergey, is that I couldn't find the view menu. It was just being hidden. It was just hovering anyway. So anyway, technical difficulties. So remember that we just said that you have these storage components that do store, and of course the cache is the extension of that component, so you don't have to replicate code. But let's say you go down on this end, which is the session on how to store stuff in Redis, how to store session stuff in Redis. So clearly this one is not session adapter. No, it's session adapter Redis. Let's correct this thing. All right. And this is wrong as well. See what happens when you copy and paste stuff. But the idea is that in order for this adapter, this session Redis adapter to work, what we do is we use storage Redis. If you remember, this is what storage Redis is, right? So it goes back to the storage class and to the adapter Redis. And we extend that and we implement the session handler interface. And all we need now here is to actually call the methods of that storage class. So in the destroy part, I'm going to call the delete with this ID. On the get, on the read, I'm going to do this get. And on the write, I'm going to do this set, right? So pretty much this whole code that was here is gone. And as you can see, it's just one line here, one line here, and one line here. So it makes things a hell of a lot easier for us to do all this work, right? Let's see, how do I get out of here now? So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. Exit presentation mode, yay, and then this, and then stop presenting. Somehow stop. All right, so that was the goal of this, just to give you an idea of why we went down that approach. And the funny thing is that once we had the storage classes done and everything was tested, other than some really small adjustments with regards to the tests, these components were pretty much plug and play, right? So we just dropped them in there and they started working. Now, the biggest problem, as I mentioned, that we have right now is the database caching. All right, there's a lot of work that is going on when you're doing database caching, and most of that work is particularly focused in the Phalcache adapter. We also have the metadata, all right, models metadata. And for those two, the models metadata, the Redis and the memcached metadata, those two are working perfectly. All right, it was just a plug-in, drop-in replacement, so to speak. Now the files is a little bit different because there was some sort of a wizardry magic that was going on in there, and I'm struggling to figure out the logic on why this thing was done. But for now, it actually works. It does store the data where it's supposed to store it and does pick it up. It's not working with regards to the adapter. It's not using the adapter straight out. So I might have to do some testing and get that to work with the adapter. So in case you're wondering, that file metadata does file get contents and file put contents. That's pretty much it, what it does. Now, as far as the cache is concerned, with the keys in terms of the database itself, for now, it does expect that everything should be in the same folder. So what I mentioned earlier about that optimization that we did with the multiple folders and 1,600 files per folder, that is where it starts complaining. So it's a little bit more research for me and figuring out exactly where things should go, and writing more tests and all that stuff. Unfortunately, our database side of things are not 100% in terms of testing. So we need a lot more work we need to do a lot more work in order to offer more coverage into our ORM. And that's hard to do. So yeah, that's all the news. Emilio, that's such a blast from the past. Format C. It will never work, my friend, because I'm running on Linux. But rm-fr/ would work. So So is that ISO? Okay. There you go. Well, you know very well I don't read Russian or speak Russian. So I kind of like guessed that it might be ISO. How are you doing, bud? Welcome. Okay, so a couple of questions. Rude, can you tell something about what needs to be done before going to beta? The cache needs to be done, needs to be finished. Anything else in the project namespace, in the project /3, the 4.0, is either I think there's one high, a couple of mediums, and a few small bugs or low bugs. And those can be addressed during the beta. I mean, it's not earth-shattering. The biggest change, if you like, is going to be in the cache, because a lot of interfaces will change and a lot of functionality will change, just like we did with the logger and. So once that is done, we can actually mark first beta 1 and still work on the last few bugs that we have. So yeah, if you want to blame somebody, I'm the bottleneck right now because I haven't finished what is going on. When will we discuss Phalcon ORM query optimization? Radoslav, this is Linux Mint, the distro that I have. But it's the XFCE version, so it's the streamlined one. So Wajdi, that's a big question. When will we discuss Phalcon ORM query optimization? So what do you have in mind in terms of how queries should be or can be optimized? I have pretty much a million things in my head on what you just mentioned. So if you have some really solid questions or anything like that, either open a request for comments issue so that we can talk about this in GitHub, or come over to if you're not on Discord, come over and let's start the discussion there. I don't know what needs to be optimized, honestly. If it was just me as Nikos and I was just starting the project straight up, I would change the way the ORM is. I would not use Active Record. I would use Data Mapper. Now, having said that, and we discussed about this numerous times before, there's no way for us to change the database pattern right now. None. It would pretty much kill every single application, because the developer will have to do all the extra work of upgrading everything and go to the new pattern, right? And that's not something that people want to do. If you have an application, you just want it to be there and you want it to work. Now, for future versions, maybe 4.1, 4.2, 4. God knows what, maybe 5, right? My personal goal is to have a really nice and streamlined and optimized ORM for Phalcon. And I want to keep the data, I want to keep the active record as we have it right now, but I also want to introduce data mappers. So let's say within 2, and somebody's at the door, the dogs are going nuts. For at least 1 or 2 versions, just offer both of them. If I can, by all means, I'm going to keep both of them together, so to offer more flexibility to the developers. But by far, the data mapper pattern for your ORM is the most streamlined and the fastest. Okay. It is a little bit tricky for people to understand it. So it's gonna, if that change appears slowly, and then we decide that this is what we're going to use, and we're not going to use two of them, again, big if, and again, in the future, then we're going to take a long time to leave that transitional period, so that all the developers have ample time to transition from one to another. There have been many projects in the past that one decision that was made by the core team pretty much killed the project, right? And we don't want to be these guys. We just want to offer as many choices as possible by also keeping the framework as fast as possible and as easy to use as possible. So these are some things. ISO, yeah, it's all right. Let's. Is there a real gain of changing the ORM? The question that you have to answer first is who is asking. Okay, so you have two kinds of people. The one let's say group of developers that turns around and says it's working, don't break it. It's not broken, don't fix it, right? And there's another group of people that are all about standards, are all about optimizations. They're all about abstraction and all that stuff. If you take those two groups of people and put them on one side and on the other, my personal view is that you have to be somewhere in the middle, right? These both are the extremes. So the if it's not broken, don't fix it is the attitude of I put it there, it does what it's supposed to do, I'm not going to even touch it, even if it doesn't have any test, even if it has that comment that Hans said do not touch this, it's already optimized, or whatever, or temporary fix July 2001, which we've all seen in the code. So you have one side there that doesn't want to touch anything, doesn't want to change, and it's either people that don't like change or don't want to be bothered of doing things, and then you have the other ones, the other end, that's the ones, the tinkerers and everything, blah blah blah. So if you actually look at both patterns, data mapper and active record, data mapper is definitely much faster, right? Of course, it all depends on the code that you've written at the bottom. But let's say you've done a decent job in writing code for A and code for B. Data mapper is definitely faster. The biggest benefit that you have is that you're going towards the pure separation of concerns, where you don't have, and I'm now trying to explain the pattern, right? When you have one layer that does everything for you, and you don't have to instantiate one object per table, so to speak. All right. There's no right or wrong way of doing things. I mean, for crying out loud, a few years ago, and a lot of you will remember, we were writing MySQL _ query, blah, 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 select from stuff, right? We weren't even using PDO, but then we started using PDO. We started getting away from SQL injections, Bobby drop tables, if you remember, and all that. So the goal of changing the ORM is to gain more speed and to have these pure separation of concerns with regards to any model that you might think. Mr. Fowler keeps on telling us on how things should be structured with his different patterns that he has, whether this is the book that talks about the enterprise architecture, or the refactoring book, for those that do have those books. My goal is to, if possible, to keep both of them. So if you have a preference towards active record, go for it. If you have a preference towards data mapper, go for that. It could very well be, and I'm just taking all sides here, it could very well be that, let's say we do introduce Data Mapper, and after a while of running both together, we figure out that Data Mapper is slower than Active Record for our implementation. If that is the case, then we're going to scrap Data Mapper, right? We want to have the fastest potential implementation for the framework. So there's nothing wrong with trying different things and changing things, so long as you do them slowly and you inform the necessary people at any given point in this process. And the necessary people that need to be informed, of course, are the developers that use this framework. Yeah, that's the thing. Is there a gain of no? I just answered that. Now, for the beta, one other thing. Honestly, I don't know how long it will take me for the cache to work. I'm kind of like stuck right now in the queries and the query land. So I'm guessing if I put some solid hours this week, I could probably push this over the hill and just let it run. If that is the case and the PSR 16 is done, let's assume that it's done today, we could potentially release a beta 1 tomorrow. And then once the beta 1 is out, then start concentrating on finalizing the rest of the bugs and start doing the documentation at the same time. So that's the time frame. It all depends on one. And I did mention, yes, I am the bottleneck right now. Whoever wants to help, by all means. But yeah, that's our goal. I am hoping to get the beta out this month coming in May after the Bugfest. We'll see. Now, fair warning to everybody, May is going to be a slow month. So if you don't see a lot of traffic going in and out, whether this is pull requests, whether this is communication from us and all that, don't be alarmed. Sergey is taking a very much needed time off for holidays with his family. So he's going to be back in the fold close to the end of May. I know my wife is going to ask me to do some stuff. So it's always like that. But I will be online for the most part. If you don't get an immediate answer, don't freak out. We haven't disappeared or something. Just giving you some heads up on where we are with schedule. When the time comes for me to go on holidays, I'll let you know on that too. So okay, so what is the metadata caching? Okay, so Phalcon needs to know, let's say you have a database, all right? And in that database, you have one of the most common tables is your users table, right? So in there, you have user ID, username, password, blah, blah, blah. Now, Phalcon doesn't really know what you have in your database, right? It doesn't know the tables and all that stuff. And how do you tell Phalcon what you have? Well, you create a model, right? And then in that model, you just say, all right, well, I want you to, the source of the table is users. And the properties of this model are ID, email, this, that, the other. Okay. Now, what Phalcon needs to do is it does trust the actual model that you have, but it needs to interrogate the table itself so that it knows what kind of fields there are. And in order to interrogate the table, it does a describe. So describe users, and it picks up all the fields and it picks up everything. Okay. Now, this is the metadata. If you don't have metadata caching, for every symbol select that you do, if you have logging, you're going to see describe users or select star from information schema, blah, blah, blah. And then you were going to see your query. So you're looking at 2 to 3 more queries per query that you initiate in your database, in your application. So if you do have the metadata caching, what happens is the first time this thing runs, and Phalcon doesn't really know what the table is really about, it's going to do this query, this select from information schema, describe users, yada, yada, yada. Then it's going to cache all that. Okay. And then the next time it's going to run, it knows what your table has, and then it keeps on doing whatever it needs to do. And this is also a caveat when you're deploying. When you do have your metadata cache, and you made a deployment and you made a change in your table, and your application doesn't show that change, and that is because your metadata cache has not been refreshed, so it still remembers the old table. So a good way of deploying would be to empty the metadata cache, empty the normal cache, empty this, empty that, and then just do a git pull or whatever. So that's the real reason for the metadata cache. Personally, Sergey, I did say for probably next month, but we're gonna have to wait for you to come back. So how do you validate that metadata cache? It depends on where you store it. From personal experience, I usually use the file cache for the metadata. So when I do my deployment, I do rm-rf of the metadata cache folder, and it just deletes all those PHP files, and you're done. So yeah, Sergey, I did notice, I did mention a little bit earlier that it's going to be somewhere in May, but you're going to be on holidays as well, so kind of like end of May maybe. I don't know. I still have to finish the damn cache. Yeah, something like that. Root rm minus in the cache. Not necessarily though like that. I do. Personally, on projects, I do distinguish where the metadata goes, and it's in its own folder. So metadata has its own folder, data has its own folder, view has its own folder, or folder, or whatever. So if I want to delete one, I delete the subfolder rather than that. But that works too, what you just wrote. If you're going to be storing your metadata in a different caching system, let's say a PCU, or libmemcached or somewhere else, then you're going to have to employ a different methodology of emptying the cache using that library. So any other questions? See, we're at 1 hour 15 minutes, so I don't want to drag this a lot. If you guys are okay and you don't have any more questions, then we can just call it a day. But if you do, please ask them. Rude, that doesn't really work. Rename all your models and tables, really? Oh my gosh. Sure thing, Izo. Absolutely. I hope I gave you some good news, some not so many bad news, and a status update of what we're doing. So gosh, Rude. Come on, man. Really? Go watch qualifying, Rude. Come on. Stop playing with YouTube. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending the webinar here, the Hangout, whatever. hold on a sec. Sergey, yes, you can set TTL, but that might not abide by your deployment strategy. So your time to live on the metadata cache could very well be, let's say, a day. But when you deploy, you might not have that time to live might not have expired, so you can wait for that to happen. And definitely in the metadata cache, since the database is not going to change that often, it's going to change only when you deploy. You really want a really long time to live so that your database doesn't get interrogated so much for that for that many. Emilio, you always need cache. Yeah, a CLI task on deploy is perfectly fine. I mean, we have that in our website as well. So if you guys look at the website repository, you're going to see in the CLI that there is a task to invalidate the cache. Wajdi, why Phalcon forces a view module in full application? What do you mean it forces a view module? That it needs the MVC view, you mean? Yeah, you can do that. You can use a model and a controller. You don't necessarily need a view. You can just echo things, print them. I mean, even if you do instantiate the view component, which will pretty much do nothing for you, then you can still echo things on screen. You don't have to use a view per se. All right, take care, Sergey. Wajdi, feel free to come on our Discord and we can talk about that there, okay? Yeah, you can just do a registration of the service with an anonymous function, which will not load it unless you really call it. And then all you do is just disable the view globally, and then you're done. You just do echo. Or instead of using the full application, you use the MVC, the micro application, and you can still have controllers. You can still have models on it. The small application, the micro, doesn't stop you from having those. They just call them handlers. Okay, so feel free to come on Discord. We can talk about it, and you can maybe I'm not picking up exactly what you mean, but yeah, absolutely, be happy to help. Okay, so with that, thank you once again to everybody that stopped by, and hope to see you on our Discord channels and everywhere. And yeah, take care, guys. Bye.